Cool.
Were you able to bring it?
Yeah.
It's 1 o'clock.
Oh yeah, somebody go call those guys outside?
Yeah, I think someone did. I say 10 minutes and they
And
want
they
to
out
say
there
20.
just taking it away.
Nah, it's going to get it. So we're back on live.
Back on live already?
Yeah, because I said
Yeah, we're gonna take off early today.
Nah, I turned it
Is
back
that
on.
right, Counselor? We take off early today?
Yeah. Your life.
No, I'm just saying. Well, I'm going home to, I gotta get ahead of myself. Catch up. Yeah, so I got 2 dudes that need these proclamation and habeas corpus.
So, when we just read that American is the copper-toned people, which one of these people is copper-toned? I'll let you choose. Because that person looks not copper-toned. That person is definitely copper-toned.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Which one?
Bro, show
Because
you.
American said copper-toned natives. Which one's brown skin?
Exactly. She looks like a goat.
Yeah.
Like,
Just-
she's like,
Yeah, she's black.
yeah, she's black. Black and ugly as hell.
Which one's the American? If American means copper-toned, right?
You see how Jamal just said that?
And that's copper.
And that's how we have
Which
to
one
get
looks
back
like
to
copper?
the normal.
You
She's black.
know what I mean?
So what we do with the,
That's true.
so when we get in our country, like what we don't do with the Europeans is they violate the contract.
Well, they're gonna have to get deported back to their homeland. Like when you see what Hitler did to Germany when he nationalized Germany, he said if you ain't German, buy it.
Because I seen something on Facebook, it was like a picture, it was like something that Hitler said that he was trying to go to Jews, and he was saying that how people that think that they black don't know that they're the true children of Israel.
Yeah.
And stuff, but the people that's running America don't want them to know that. And they were saying that the Jews made up a whole story of Hitler.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, because when you it goes from a vegan, from a house builder to running the whole country, and then they say, oh, you're trying to make a perfect race,
Yeah.
but having Armenian have blonde hair, blue eyes, he didn't either. They didn't need a lot.
Yeah, that's what they always do.
Because I was like, what the heck do you want to do with the Europeans when we get in our country back? Because they violated the contract.
But remember, not all of them.
Yeah, not all of them.
Yeah.
So what about like the Europeans that's born here? They still own land like over there in Europe? Like, are they
Well,
entitled to
they
land?
gotta go over there and figure that out. Even though that's ours too, but they gotta go over there and figure that out. We need to figure out what's going on here first. You know what I mean? Like all those are good questions, but if you observe the conditions of our people, those are great questions to be projected. That you're peering into the future right now. Right now, policy enforcers pull you over. You know what I mean? Right now, all you had to call was me. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you called me and then I said, you know what? We got the Mufti. All right, I'll send the Mufti out there to deal with it. You know what I mean? So great questions, great points, but we need to focus on now. You know what I mean? Keep thinking like that. Never stop thinking like that. But always focus on right now. You know what I mean? It talks about in the Quran. If you're busy picking everyone else's weeds, then you got weeds all over your house.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you do, you know what I mean? So keep thinking like that. You're supposed to be thinking like that. Also focus on right now. Like, so what you're doing, you're projecting.
Yes.
Projecting is good. But
I
you need to
that and
see that, and then come back and make it happen. Resilient. You know what I mean? Making us deporting them would be us teaching our people, oh yeah, you're more than your land. That's us deporting them in the future. You know what I mean? That's really what it is. It's just
you
we
can
gotta
use
remind ourselves to
down
think
the house.
like we used to think, and not to reject the way we think because of these European schools. And everyone's calling us crazy because we ain't crazy. It's just they don't know. So it's one and no one's here.
Yeah, I thought,
It's two people went to go get them.
no, they're too talking now.
Can you keep the live busy, please? Don't say nothing I want to say, please.
I got so much books at home, I need new shelves. They're all over the desk, over everywhere. Right, yeah.
Don't have you acting like you're studious because you just sat in here. Gotta get some sunlight.
Put in charge of keeping the live up right now.
Oh yeah.
Where you going? No, absolutely.
Great. I'll say you didn't even believe in them.
But
So, you got another book? All right, now that everyone's back. Because I said one and they want to be on other people's time.
Other
Ready?
people's time.
Ready? I'm going to continue. So, when we're dealing with all of that, right, the conversion, the appearance that a transfer took place, knowing that Americans, one of the various Coppertone natives found in America, knowing that nationality denotes bloodline, knowing that, I don't know if you can see this picture, I just showed the live. So, American means various Coppertone natives. Is this woman American?
No.
So can she be an heir to America?
No.
Is this woman American?
Yes.
So she can be an heir to America, right?
Yes.
So what I found was, when I was looking at the recorder of deeds in City Hall, I found the colonial governor, Gina Raimondo's discharge of mortgage on her house. On hers. Because remember, they're claiming to be Americans, and they're cheating. Right? So I found her discharge. A discharge of mortgage.
That's crazy.
Now,
That's crazy.
now when you go to the Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition, it'll tell you mortgage is a mere lien and is not recognized as creating title to an estate. The only way to own anything is to have the original title or the allodial title. So this would be feudal. Right? So a mortgage is feudal, which means, what does feud mean? Family feud?
Yeah, I mean, fight.
It can be what?
Like a fight.
It's a fight. It can be argued. All of their claims can be argued because they're not Americans and this is America. That's why it's feudal.
This needs to be getting across
Oh.
because this keeps some of us at bay. We're thinking that, oh, they got
A right to
standing
claim.
ground. Yeah, right to claim.
But that's conversion. That's why in my second book, I reference a book that a European wrote where it said an Indian is just the other, used for mind control purposes. Well, he didn't specifically say mind control purposes, but for social engineering to have something to oppose to. So the Europeans paint this picture that they were coming here civilizing the savages, and the Indians were the savages. That's not true. That's conversion. To make the reader believe it, because remember, the universe is mental. It's a substitute story. To keep you away from this. And if you look up, because I remember when I came out the Marines, I joined this veterans program for entrepreneurship because I wasn't about to work for nobody, right? And I was working with this European dude. He was a Mason, had the Masonic ring. He was like 70-something or whatever. And he's talking about how he's been owning property and stuff for years, right? Owning businesses for years. And then I was introduced to the stuff around that time. This is like early 2016, maybe something like that. And I found a loyal title because I was watching Ty Street-based videos. Like I was studying. I was like, oh, all this stuff new, but you know, I didn't know. It was my introduction, so I couldn't just speak it. Right? And I didn't know it in depth. So I was still studying, and then I presented. I was like, I found a loyal title. And he was like, what does that mean? Meanwhile, this European guy dealing with business for years. Right? I was like, oh, it means, you have a clear, perfected title to ownership of property. And when I Googled it, it says only a sovereign can create a logial title, right? So I tell him that, he's like, well, so what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to find the sovereign. Thinking I'm going to find someone, the original people of the land, I'm going to go to them and get them to write it for me. Then I figured out we're the sovereign.
Yeah.
It comes from us.
And
And this European dude is like, oh, he laughed at me. Because I was out of my mind. Because I'm looking outward for something that comes from within. That's you being out of your mind. That's why he was laughing. Like this dude's an heir to the world's biggest estate, and he thinks he has to go to someone else to get something.
So he's just looking at you at how.
No, he was laughing at me. He was like,
He probably laughed.
because I said that. You know what I mean? I said, oh, I'm going to go find a sovereign. He laughed like, oh man.
You look something. I get it.
But now in retrospect, I know why he was laughing. Because this comes from the people, your bloodline. Remember nationality, the estate, status, right? So, when I was studying, like Drew already said, studying, and it said, go to those who know law in the city hall, recorder of deeds, and they'll be glad to render you a favorable reply. So if you think any more is lying, talking about loyal title, put stuff in trust, claiming property, etc., go to the city hall and see what it says on all or most of these European mortgages. It says discharge. Don't say paid.
No, it don't. It all says.
It does not say paid. Discharging something and paying something is completely different. If you're selling me this expo, right? Let's say you're selling me the dry erase marker. You're selling me. I give you money. That's paid. Let's say, you're still selling it. I go to you, hey brother, can I get this expo marker? Yeah, you can have it. That's a discharge. Yeah, you can have it. That's discharge.
Damn, so I just been discharging everything my whole life. Giving this stuff away.
In their codes, they call it, it's UCC 3-604, that's discharging of debt. So, yeah, 3-604, when you look it up, that's a C, not an E. Now, I'm saying this because these Europeans do it. They don't just know it, they do it. And I'm going to show you proof. So, any so-called Moor, dirty Moor, saying, that's not Drew Moore's science or whatever. If Drew said Moors, you were living up and down in Mississippi before any European got here, and he said, children, you're home and you're just plain rich, that means this is our land, so we can claim our stuff. Right? Okay. If you're going to claim your stuff, you're going to know how to do it, right? Because escheating is dealing with a lack of an heir competent to inherit, right? So you need to know this. So when you're dealing with this, you're not necessarily dealing with this, but this is the principle of this. Because when you're dealing with this, you're dealing with commerce and contracts. We're not subject to this, but the principle is ancient. Meaning, I can either sell you my book for money, or I can give it to you and that's a discharge. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying you have to abide by the UCCs. What I'm saying is, this process can be reflected as that. It's codified in this. So study the nature of it. And you can enforce it on them because it's their codes. That's what I'm telling you. Because it's derived from our ancient stuff. Right? So, now I'm going to show you Gina Raimondo, the governor of Rhode Island, even though this ain't Rhode Island. I'm going to show you her mortgage discharge. And it's going to say she's an heir. So again, Americans copper tone people, right? Is Gina Raimondo copper tone? No, she's not. So therefore, she's not an heir to America, right? Okay.
If she spray tans or she goes to the tan.
No, she's straight up here. Spray tan. Actually, this is a commercial.
I seen it.
The copper tone, right?
What's the name of it?
Skin,
Copper.
for sunscreen.
Suntan, and it's called copper tone.
Yeah, it's called
That's
copper tone.
crazy. I
So-
seen it yesterday.
No, I did a whole thing. But, so here it is. Here it is. And since I forgot my thingamabob for my thingy, from my HDMI cord for my projector, I'm going to I'm showing you Gina Raimondo's discharge of mortgage. It don't say paid, it says discharge or release of mortgage. All right, so this is Gina Raimondo. So do these Europeans know? Yes, they absolutely do. So this is Gina Raimondo, the Now, this is not an attack on her at all, just so everyone knows. I know, I'm just being clear for the record. This is not an attack on Gina Raimondo. I'm showing you that this is on the record. This is from, you can actually go down to City Hall, downtown so-called Providence, Kennedy Plaza, City Hall, go down to the recorder, or go up to the recorder of deeds. Was that the fifth floor? Third floor? Fifth floor. Fifth floor, room 508, right?
Yes.
Room 508. You can speak to John A. Murphy if you want. Or you can just go to the computer and type in anyone's last name and first name, and it'll pop up, right? So that's what I did. And it says release of mortgage. Does that say paid? Does that say paid?
Nope. Does not say paid
Oh.
anywhere.
No, all men. So this is Europeans. This is what Europeans know. On our land. This is what Europeans know on our land, right?
Yeah.
Know all men by these presents that the undersigned, for and in consideration of the payment of indebtedness, secured, and the cancellation of all the notes,
Wow.
thereby secured in the sum of $1. $1. Aren't most mortgages like 200,000? So this was released for $1. Remember, UCC 3-604, you have the right to discharge anything you want as the creditor. Right? So these people are claiming to be creditors since we don't know who we are. $1. The receipt whereof is hereby acknowledged, does hereby remiss, release, satisfy, convey, and quit claim onto, all caps, Andrew K. Moffitt, who is the first gentleman, Gina Raimondo's husband, and Gina Raimondo, tenants,
Wow.
by the entirety, heirs. Are they heirs? There ain't no heirs here. Legal representatives, successors and or assignees, and assigns all right, title, interest, claim, or demand whatsoever it might have acquired in, through, or by a certain mortgage / deed of trust, bearing the date and has the date of the mortgage, filed for the record in the land records of the Township of Providence City in Providence County, State of Rhode Island. All these corporations, that's a corporate person, that's a corporate person, that's a corporate person. Then it has the instrument number, the property address, and testimony whereof the said Mortgage Electric Registration System Incorporated, acting solely as nominee for Homester Mortgage Inc., its successors and assignees, has caused these presents to be signed by its assistant secretary, dated, etc. Mortgage Electronic Registration System Inc., acting solely as nominee for Homester Mortgage Inc., its successor and assigns. So clearly that's a continuation of what I just read. Received, signed by them, in the state of Florida.
What?
Yup, County of Duval, because it's all corporate.
So does it matter
How
what
they
the
just took?
It's on the record, isn't it? It's just on the record. It's on the record. It's on the record, right? On April 10, 2012, before me, Laura Jean Golden, a notary public, personally appeared Abigail Rowe, who proved to me, on the basis of satisfactory evidence, to be the person whose name is or subscribed to the, and this is a continuation, within instrument, and acknowledged to me that he / she / they executed the same in his, her, their authorized capacities, and that, my battery's low, even though it's plugged in, and, that by his or her signature on the instrument, the person or the entity upon behalf of which the person executed the instrument, I certify under penalty of perjury, under the laws of the state of Florida, this ain't Florida, that the foregoing paragraph is true and correct, witnessed by my hand and official seal signed by a notary. So these Europeans know exactly what discharging is. Did they pay? Did that say they paid? How much did they pay for this? $1 for a mortgage. Meanwhile, our people suffering, getting 30-year mortgages that can't afford crap, while these Europeans, and this ain't racism. This is not racism. It's birthright theft. It's cheating, and it's conversion. Whereby they put the debt on the people of the land, even though the debt ain't real.
Right.
Who think that they're the straw man that the Europeans created to put the debt on the straw man, so we think it's us, and then we say yes, we're it. Meanwhile, they're just discharging crap and living comfortably, moving comfortably. Because they're not concerned with paying off a 30-year mortgage and working every single day.
They're not concerned with it at all. And
always bugging me out.
Wait, did I make this up?
No, you reading it
Oh,
right now.
oh, that,
from
oh, okay.
Public, this is all public information.
Let me just show you again.
That's deep.
Just in case you thought something else.
Hold it.
You take this whole strip right now.
So the mortgage company discharged or released the deed of trust to Gina Raimondo and her husband, which means they do not have to pay anything to be in the house that they are in. Tracking?
And they just get to live.
And they get to just be.
And we over
Meaning
here,
they have a better quality of life because they're not working day in and day out, paycheck to paycheck, thinking they have to pay anything because they don't.
which gives them time to read and study and be
Yeah.
ask like
Yes.
they are. So we
got
definitely
that
need to
time.
be up on.
All right, now everyone get away from me. No, I'm playing. Right? So, don't let anyone play you. Don't let anyone play you and say these Europeans don't know. Because I just showed you that the top dog knows.
Islam, gods and goddesses.
All right, peace. So now, knowing that, so we just seen that somehow these Europeans are claiming to be heirs. This is not their land, so how can they be heirs to this land? You've seen that they were claiming a corporate address in a corporation. So they're not actually claiming the land because they can't claim the land. I remember I was talking to this woman, and we were talking about we actually weren't even talking about rights of indigenous people, but we were talking about how our people are homeless and stuff like that. She was homeless. She was Asiatic. And it inspired me to do this little video that I did showing abandoned houses, and I was talking about rights of indigenous people, and I wrote this little letter. It's going to be in the end of my second book. And there's no reason why any indigenous person should be homeless. And this stuff makes me want to cry. Because I remember I was walking home from the post office, and I'm probably going to cry, excuse me. And this older woman walked up to me, and she asked me for $1. And then we started talking, she's homeless, so her mind's messed up. And she was telling me how the Europeans, she was in an apartment, Europeans walked on the door and put an eviction notice. Actually, no, they didn't put an eviction notice on her. They said you have to get out. And this woman, she was like 50 years old, something like that, Asiatic woman, indigenous woman, you have to get out. She said she was kicked out of her house in 10 minutes. No paperwork, nothing. They just said, get out. You know what I mean? This shit is not a game. Our people are suffering. You know what I mean? Like, they said, get out. And she couldn't fight them. Not only that, but her mind was messed up. Because the quality of life is so poor, it's causing this kind of stuff. It's causing mental anguish. It's causing mental instability. While these people know this is not happening to them. It's not racism. This is not happening to them. You get what I'm saying? So while we're dealing with this stuff, remember, I was walking home. There was, Crossroads, right? Yeah. For homeless people. Nothing but our people.
Yeah.
And then a few Europeans. I'm walking by, and I see this Asiatic woman just in the grass, laying in the grass. How are you homeless? Well, all these abandoned homes. Right? So then also back to the woman I was talking about. She spoke to the mayor, Georgie Lorza, and she proposed to him, because it was some college meeting or whatever, she proposed to him, how about we fix these houses up for homeless people? He said, we can't find the owners. The owners can't be contacted. Because the owners don't know that they're the owners. And then we got these black leaders and these Indian leaders claiming that we're black and Indian, while they know this. There's a so-called Indian chief here. You'll watch one of his videos, and he'll reference Black's Law Dictionary 2nd edition. Then he'll say, he's arguing why we should be called Indians and not Native Americans. Then he'll say, well, just go to the law. It doesn't matter what you were taught. It matters what it is. But how come he's not telling people that Indian title is not ownership? How come he's not telling people that these Europeans are discharging their debt living a good life while we're struggling. How come he's not telling you that? And then you'll look at the joint memorandum of understanding between the Narragansett Tribe of Indians, which is a Rhode Island corporation, and the state of Rhode Island. They sold everything to them. And they agreed, even though they can't sell it, they agreed that their laws would apply to them. That's why our people are suffering, because our leaders are cowards. Right? So, back to this. Excuse me for crying, right?
No, you did it, Judge.
So, when you're dealing with them discharging the debt, this is the law that applies to it. Also, this right here. Subsection, that's right? Title 12, subsection 411?
Which one is that? The dealing with, let me look it up.
Yeah, look at it, please. Yes, it will say Federal Reserve notes. I'm pretty sure it's Title 12. It'll say Federal Reserve notes shall be the obligation of the United States. When you look up what the word obligation means, it means debt. Then, when you look at HJ 5404, which is this current administration of Congress, they will admit 5404. They will admit, when you read it, actually, when you read it, these Europeans admit that based on what they did in 1913, they caused the Great Depression. Because the private bankers took all of the people's wealth, which is the gold and silver, and then put mortgages on people's homes in 1913. That's what caused the Great Depression. So this is House Joint Resolution 5404, the 115th Congress, second session, March 22nd, 2018. Remember, this is mortgages. This is discharging debt. This is getting out of poverty, right? In the House of Representatives, March 22nd, 2018, Mr. Mooney, Moon, Silver, of West Virginia, introduced the following bill, which was referred to the Committee on Financial Services, a bill to define the dollar as a fixed weight of gold. Article 1, Section 8, Article 1, Section 10. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. Section 1, findings. Congress finds the following. The United States dollar has lost 30% of its purchasing power since 2000 and 96% of its purchasing power since the end of the gold standard in 1913. Under the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation objective, the dollar loses half of its purchasing power every generation for 35 years. American families need long-term price stability to meet their household spending needs, save money, and plan for retirement. The Federal Reserve policy of long-term inflation has made American manufacturing uncompetitive, raising the cost of the United States manufacturing goods by more than 40% since the year 2000, compared to less than 20% in Germany and France. Between 2000 and 2010, United States manufacturing employment shrunk by 1/3 after holding steady for 30 years at nearly 20 million jobs. The American economy needs a stable dollar, fixed exchange rates, and money supply controlled by the market, not the government. That's where Drelly said money, gold, silver, and commerce belong to the people and the people alone. Because these private bankers have been claiming ownership over everything. That's why Drelly came. The gold standard puts control of the money supply with the market, the people. When they say market, they're talking about the people. Because remember when I did Jural Society and I went to the history? Merchants established government to protect themselves from highwaymen and bandits. And the people like them, robbing people. Because remember, government's sole purpose is to secure people's rights and protect the people. Then when you look up American Constitutional Interpretation, 2nd edition, on page 11, they'll say, the document talking about the Constitution never granted Congress the ability to make anything like the Federal Reserve Bank, the FBI, or the Federal Reserve System. They're private bankers, and they're admitting that. That's why they say market and government and Federal Reserve Bank, right? So you need to know this. So, I'll read that again. Number 7. The gold standard puts control of the money supply with the market instead of the Federal Reserve. The gold standard means legal tender defined by and convertible into a certain quantity of gold. That's why they call it a promissory note. And when you read this, they promise to give you gold when you bring that to a bank, but they do not. That's how they're controlling our energy. Excuse me. Under the gold standard, through 1913, the United States economy grew at an annual average of 4%, 1/3 larger than the growth rate since then and twice the level since 2000. The International Gold Exchange Standard from 1914 to 1971 did not provide for a United States dollar convertible into gold, and therefore helped cause the Great Depression and stagnation. What they just admit? That they caused the Great Depression. That's what they just admitted. This is this current Congress. Current. But Moors are making this up, right? The Federal Reserve trickle-down policy of expanding the money supply with no demand for it has enriched the owners of financial assets, but endangered the jobs, wages, and saving of blue-collar workers. Who are they talking about? Us. Restoring American middle-class prosperity requires change in monetary policy authorized to Congress in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5 of the Constitution. Didn't Raleigh say enforce the Constitution? No. Didn't Raleigh say pay attention, he's going to force the Europeans to tell the truth? Oh. Section 2, define the dollar in terms of gold. Effective 30 months after the date of enactment of this act. Now, this was just a proposal. Say that again?
You said 30 months?
30 months, yeah. But this hasn't been approved yet. This was just proposed, but they're still admitting it. They're still admitting, just because it hasn't been proposed. That part was just kind of like the historical stuff. This is what they're proposing. This is what the bill would be. You know what I'm saying? This is kind of like the preamble. Like, this is why we should do this. This is why it still applies. You know what I'm saying? So effective 30 months after the date of enactment of this act, the Secretary of the Treasury, in this act referred to as the Secretary, shall define the dollar in terms of fixed weight of gold based on that day's closing market price of gold, and Federal Reserve Bank shall make Federal Reserve notes exchangeable with gold at the statutory gold definition of the dollar. When you read money in Black's Law Dictionary, it'll tell you it's gold or silver. And does not embrace notes. And if you look at that note in your pocket, it'll say Federal Reserve note, which means it's not money. Then that'll take you back to this and say that they owe you gold. So this does not need to be approved because it's already in their statutes. It's already in their codes. This is just them. Hey, yeah, we caused a Great Depression, by the way. Knowing that most of our people won't make that connection because we're taught crap in their schools. Then, Section 3, disclosure of holdings. During the 30-month period following the date of enactment of this act, the United States government shall take timely and responsible steps to disclose all of its holdings of gold, together with a contemporaneous report of any United States governmental purchase or sale, thus enacting the ability of the market and of market recipients to arrive at the fixed dollar gold parity in an orderly fashion. Now, can you go into remember what China did for a few years?
Oh yeah, so China had a 20-year plan to get rid of the monetary note, and it was for the purpose of becoming superior to America.
Well, the
United States government. So they started to encourage their people and do infomercials and commercials just to get their minds in the right place to buy gold, buy land, just anything
of value.
Yeah, of true value that doesn't diminish. So instead of their government trying to figure out how they can back their note, they put it,
They gave it back to the people.
they made it so that the people were participating and helping them, so each household would back their own dollar, and then at the same time, their government was buying gold in mines, and so that's how China's dollar became so strong.
Because it was the people. Because like Lee said, money, gold, and silver, and commerce belong to the people. Because that is a representation of our energy. That's why they call it currency. Current energy,
So is
currency.
that one of the countries that made the deal with Russia to only deal with metal?
China?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I read about this
Yeah, Brazil.
when I was in high school. It was years ago. Yeah, yesterday.
Can you, who else was part of that deal that agreed to deal with, so Brazil, China, Russia?
Yes, come on, can't come up with that right now. They have a name for it, but I can't even.
And when you read the hadiths of Prophet Nabi Ali, he said, there will be a point in time where every nation is warring against the United States. Because what they've been doing, when you read their Rex 84 plan, they've been causing, I can't remember exactly what they call it. You know the silent weapons for silent wars? They call it psychological
Warfare?
war via economic control, pretty much. So they're saying, so put the mortgage on these black people to cause pressure in their mind because the universe is mental. Make sure that they don't know that it's their land, so they think they have to pay us. Therefore, when we tighten things, we put pressure on them and them only. Then we can get their sons to fight in our war because they think the depression is real. So they've been funding their militaries based on that and conquering nations based on that, and it costs them nothing because they're printing paper. So remember, it's never, ever, ever, never, ever, never, ever about money with them. It's about the minds of the people. Okay? The administrative control over the land. And when you say land, you say people. So the reason why we lost our land is because we lost our mind. You get that, right?
Yes.
Cool. So, that's this. That's what we just read, that those Europeans, that's what they're operating off of. That knowledge. Not, well, I'm white, so I got white privilege. No, they're dealing with law. The record. And they train us to deal with emotions. They don't like me because my skin's black. No, you don't do anything. Tracking. Any questions? No, that was pretty intense. Do we need another break? No? Alright, cool. That was pretty intense for me. So, knowing all this, knowing that they're not Americans, right? Knowing that when you read House Joint Resolution 192, James Chomphicant speech, well, James Chomphicant Jr., the representative for Ohio, he'll tell you that the United States is in Chapter 11. Say again?
Who they killed?
Yeah, who they killed. He said the United States in Chapter 11, they are official trustees. So if there's a trust, that means it's beneficiary.
They put him in jail first, and then he come out.
Yeah, they put him in jail a few times. Yeah. So they say, you know, the United States dissolved all of its sovereign authority based on, 1933 Federal Reserve Act, all that good stuff. They know this, right? So knowing all of that, and I put some of the documents that we need to read in that, so when I give it to you, you know exactly what to read. These Europeans operate off of that. So we need to operate off of that too, since this is our land, and we have a superior claim. That makes sense? So knowing that they're not Americans, knowing that it's your nationality that determines your political status and your status dealing with your land and your claim to it, knowing that whenever they claim anything, it's futile, meaning it can be argued, knowing that our claim is superior because we're the people of the land, knowing that the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People says indigenous people have the right to their land and resources back, meaning administrative control over it back, we can discharge these so-called debts. And we can tell these Europeans to quit their claim. And we put that in action, because that's what a deed is. And then we record it, because we're dealing with the record. So remember, deed does not mean you own anything. Deed means something was done. Right? Once we tell them to quit their claim, which that's kind of an example of it, right? That was the mortgage company releasing their claim and giving it to Gina Raimondo and her husband, listing them as heirs. That's why it only cost $1. Because hereditaments can't be sold. You know what I'm saying? But when you're dealing with contract, it must be substance for something. So something had to be exchanged. You know what I'm saying? And you'll see sometimes it'll be listed as a gift. If you just check the record, read it. Some of it will be a gift. You know what I mean? These people, they don't pay for crap because everything's paid for. Hold on, before you question, everything's already paid for. Look outside. You see that building? It's there, right? That means it's paid for. How do you think these buildings right here? It's all paid for. That's why it's here. Like when you want to sell your crystals, right? You buy the crystals, right? Then you have them. Oh, it's already paid for. Then if you want to sell it, then you sell it to someone else. But it's already paid for. So all this electricity that we're getting, it's already paid for. How do you think it exists? And since they're trustees, oh yeah, go ahead and discharge that debt since we're the heir. Go ahead and release your claim because this ain't your land. But we need that knowledge. Or you don't know what you don't know. Any questions? Oh yeah, there you go.
What if someone calls her out on not being an heir? And
Who's the someone?
one of us?
We gotta be organized. Well, she's already not in there. Well, we still have to be
Because
organized.
it says it on her.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's not claiming to be an heir because when we claim the land, when we do the allodial titles, it'll have the longitude and latitude. And then so a lot of people ask me this question. Well, how do you get the longitude and latitude converted into minutes? It's pretty easy, yes.
How what she did was legal.
Yeah, it is legal. It's not lawful though.
Yeah, but she's not.
Yeah, but
a European.
yes, but when remember when you look at it, it's the straw name claiming a corporate name claiming a corporate address in a corporate city.
Right. All fiction.
It's all fiction.
Okay.
But then
So, but that's illegal?
yeah, it's legal.
The way she did?
Yeah. But it's not lawful.
It's a corporate.
Say again?
It's a corporate.
Yeah.
She did all corporate.
Yes. It's legal, but it's not lawful. It's legal because the
Under the
rightful
law.
heirs aren't putting in an adverse claim.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So like if you ain't home, right? I just go in your house and start doing stuff. Until you get home, I can be there. It's futile and it can be argued, but if you're not competent, if you try to open up the door, can't put the key in the door, then you ain't getting in. That's related to the knowledge. If you don't got the right knowledge, you're not inheriting anything. Remember, esteem means one of an heir competent. Does that make sense? Any more questions? That was a great question. So, I forgot where I was. Oh yeah, longitude and latitude.
Yeah.
So, look, if you go to Google Maps, right? If you go to Google Maps and then right click on any area and say what's here, longitude and latitude will pop up. It'll look something like this. Let's say 20 degrees, 24.
Can you put your address and that shows up?
Yeah, the real name. And then it'll have another set of numbers and it'll say west. Or it'll say W, which means west. Because in the Marines, they teach you how to read a map. You read it right and up. This is where the compass and the square masonry comes into play. And the letter G, geography, 7, right? How to read a map, right and up. So when you look at a map and you're trying to plot it on a map, you'll plot it like that. So like it'll have like a grid square on the map. You know what I mean? And let's say, there's mountains over here, there's a river right here. You know what I mean? And there'll be, it'll have like numbers up here on top of the map, numbers on the side, numbers on the bottom, so you can plot it. And then you put, I can't remember what it's called. What's that thing called? Compass? No, not a compass. It's it's kind of like this. It kind of looks like this. Is this protractor?
Yeah.
Protractor, right? So then you put the protractor to it. I haven't done this in a while. Because they teach you land navigation in the military. And you use longitude and latitude to plot your points. Because they ain't saying, oh yeah, go to 44, go to 45 Friendship Street, and then you go to Friendship Street and it's a river. No. They do points. And then you'll plot your point by putting a protractor there, and you read it right and up. And then based on what that point is, you'll see where, that number is, and you write it down. I can't remember exactly what it is, I haven't done it in 4 years. But ask any Marine how to read a map, and they'll say right and up. Because we're trained to say that. Ask them. Trust me, I got tattoos. I was reading that. No. Right? So that relates to that. That's the compass and the square in masonry. The ruler, and then the plot. So you can draw the circle, square, and then you'll have G, which is 7, Gaia. Right? So you'll look something like this, and then you do this. This is how you get the points, right? This is so hard to figure out. That's how you figure it out. Excuse my north. That's how you figure out what the plots are. So you'll say, so let's say, they have it as 39 Friendship Street, and that's the house, right? And that's the estate you're trying to claim. So you'll put your what's here on Google Maps. You put it to this point. What's here? It'll give you the coordinate. It'll give you that coordinate, right? So you say starting at a point, boom, right here on what's called Friendship Street, right, on the southerly side of Friendship Street. Then, starting at this point, 20 degrees, 24 minutes, 25 seconds north, 20 degrees, 29 minutes, 25 seconds west, starting at that point, right, on that street, north, 1,000 feet or whatever, to another point, then there's another point. Then, we'll say eastwardly to another point, longitude, latitude, then southerly to another point, right, then westernly back to the point of origin, all of that, and the appurtenances, anything attached to the estate, anything on it, that's what you claim. You don't claim the street, like they did, because that doesn't exist. That exists though. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you cannot claim Providence. You cannot claim Friendship Street, because those things are not real. Because the land existed prior to this. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Great, because I know you ain't done, because this is not complicated. So we're telling them to release their claim of the longitude and latitude that they have listed as blah 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 Friendship Street.
It's really like they never been to Cranston or Warren.
Never left.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
A lot of our people haven't even left the areas that they've been in. They're probably the original people. They just think that there's something else. Yep. And then ask most of our people, yeah, I got Indian in my family. No, you don't. You're Moorish, and this is your land. They told you were Indian. A lot of us used to say it.
I arguing with people every day about that.
What?
You're not Indian. Are you Indian? They be like, that's not. No, you're not Indian.
You clearly don't know geography.
They want to keep going back and forth.
Yeah. It's because they're trained. Look at these powwows.
That's what I tell
Same
them.
thing like the churches.
You are getting trained just like I was trained through this whole thing, but common sense will bring you
Yes.
through. Like common law, common sense, all goes together.
respect it if you want. Truth is the truth. Because we all know when we get that gut feeling, I shouldn't be walking down the street, and then something happens, like, damn, I knew I shouldn't have done that. These Indians know. That's why they have to keep going to the powwows to get that opioid to remind them of something that they're not. Same thing with black people. They gotta keep going to the church because clearly they don't got God. Clearly you don't. You have to keep going. Clearly. Clearly if you're taking medicine, you gotta keep taking it. It ain't medicine. It's a treatment. You know what I'm saying? Any questions? How to what's it called? Not backtrack. I haven't done it in years, but there's a way where you can, if you make it to a point that was misplotted, you can backtrack based on what the pace counter told you. Like we walk this many paces, like literally count footsteps in this direction. You can just, and let's say you got to go around a mountain. You know what I mean? Like they teach you how to navigate all that, because that's really what it is. But you ain't getting that in no European high school or college. You get that in military though, because you need to learn how to. Like there's something called SIPRNet. You got NIPR and SIPRNet in the military. SIPRNet you need a security clearance to get to. And there's videos of Marines hunting people down. Like hunting them down, like you'll hear them on the radio in the Humvee. There'll be like other nationals, you know, the terrorists. You know they're not terrorists. You'll see the video, everything. You'll see everything. Them hunting them down, driving down small streets in Humvees, radioing in. He's running this way, like just like they do police terrorists. Same thing. Gunmen down in the street. This. Yeah, we do have a lot of. Drew Ali said there's more than enough for everyone to do. Everyone. I was about to say something inappropriate, but boots on the ground. We call it. Never mind.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
We need every swing and tassel on the. You know what I mean? Involved in this. Every swing and tassel we need. You know what I mean? We need everyone involved because there's so much.
Somebody gonna make that a meme.
Yeah, someone already made me into a meme. But
went right over your fence.
Yeah, right over my fence. So this is stuff Europeans already know. But anyway, so back to the land navigation thing, right? So they would put us in teams, and they would give us a bunch of points. Everyone had a different point, and it would be like these ammo cans in the woods. And the point is supposed to. There's multiple ways to do this. You can either plot 100 meters off, or you can be, it can be off to various degrees, and it all depends on which method you use it, and which protractor you use to get an exact pinpoint. It's almost unbelievable until you actually do it. Like, wow, this really took me right here. That's cosmology, metrology. That's literally the science that they use. So they put us in teams. Each team has their own ammo can to get, and then you start at this point. Then you got to find these ammo cans. You know what I mean? Like it'll give you something. You have to shoot the compass. All right, it's this direction. Then you just start walking. Pace count, all that stuff. Then you find another ammo can. It'll give you another point. You got to mark. Find another one. All in the woods that you've never been in before, but you got a map and a compass, and this works, right? Then once you find all that, you got to find your way back. And then you go back. And the first team that makes it back is you don't get to walk anymore. You get to relax. That's your benefit. Ask any Marine. They have to go through this training. They have know that I'll be using this right now. You know what I mean? Like, I remember I was in the Marines, I was in the smoke pit, and I was getting out in like 2 months or whatever. Smoking a cigarette, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna be doing. But I already know, I was saying God at the time. I was like, I know God's gonna put me where I need to be. I remember that. I had Ray-Bans on. I was looking at, what was it? I was in California. I can't remember my unit, not that. Camp Margarita, I know, that's where I was, Camp Margarita. Camp Pendleton. So it was Camp Pendleton was a big military base. Camp Margarita was this area. 33 area. Yeah. But yeah. Any questions?
What is setting up a allodial title? Like you said, we all have to kind of, we all need to, for it to be effectuated properly, we all have to come together versus an individual.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you kind of want to see a little bit more elaborate.
Well, as an example, when he got pulled over by policy enforcement, he said, "Let me call my consul." That's what government do. So that's why the energy changed, because they knew, oh, we're not dealing with an individual anymore. He's talking to a consul, meaning a government. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to go too much into detail because we're on camera right now. But when you're dealing with this, and when you look at any of their stuff, like if you look at any of their quick claims, they'll have the estate description or the estate description telling you, the coordinates of what area I'm giving to that person. So that will be incorporated into this. Tracking. But I'll end this so we can talk more. So peace, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Study, study, study. If you ask me what to study next, I'll say study yourselves and declare your nationality. Look at what Fidel Castro did with Cuba and declare your nationality. So peace.